ในช่วงต่อไปนะครับจะเป็นการบรรยายจากเกลนะครับ
ค่ะหัวข้อการบรรยาย Digital Humanities and the Transformation of Historical Studies ค่ะขอเรียนเชิญ Mr. Masaki Morisawa ค่ะ Senior Product Manager Gale International Asia ค่ะด้านการตลาดการฝึกอบรมและเทคนิคการใช้ผลิตภัณฑ์ค่ะขอเสียงปรบมือต้อนรับด้วยค่ะ
Sawadee Cup. Sawadee Cup. Thank you very much for having me here in Chiang Mai. Do I have my slides showing up here, or do I? Oh, thank you very much. So, thank you again for having me here in Chiang Mai. I'm very excited to be here, and this is my very first PULINET conference, and I can tell you, you guys seem to have a lot of fun here. I'm really excited. And I'm sure you have been hearing something about iPhones and iPads, and I see many anticipating faces. But I have to warn you, before we get into that part, you have to listen to my presentation, okay? And you can't just be sitting there. You have to pay attention, because during my presentation, there will be certain words that will later be asked to you as quizzes before you can get that coveted iPhone or iPad. So please, a few more minutes of attention, please. Okay? So today I'll be talking about something rather different from previous Gale presentations, I think. We'll be talking about a topic called the digital humanities. How many of you have heard about that phrase, digital humanities? That sound, you hear that phrase on and off? I see some hands raised. This is a relatively new phenomenon that is happening in the area of humanities, and it's a really fastly developing area as well, and I'm really excited to be sharing with you some of the things that we've been involved in at Gale in this area. But first, let me briefly reintroduce my company. Gale is a library publisher. You might recognize us from many of the reference works that we publish, and we also publish many databases, like the journal databases, academic OneFile, literature databases, history databases. But today my focus will be on something a little bit different, which we call Gale Primary Sources. This is a really vastly accelerating publishing area in our business. And we have been publishing a lot of historical materials, old books, old newspapers, many historical manuscripts, and many precious cultural artifacts are being digitized by Gale and being brought to you through the internet. And how does that interact with the digital humanities? I'll talk about a little bit later. But let me briefly reintroduce myself as well. Masaki Morisawa. I'm based in Tokyo, Japan. You're always welcome to visit us. I support Product for Asia. If you're wondering about my accent, no, this is not the typical Japanese accent. I lived in the United States as a child, so get that out of the way. I studied English literature. I'm sorry, I'm married. I have a daughter and a son. So much about myself. Back to my main topic. This is a newspaper article that was published in 1869. And if I remember the Springer presentation earlier, that's the same year that the Nature journal was first published. So that's really in the mid of the 19th century. And this article is very interesting because it's entitled The Books of the Future. I won't read the entire article to you, but I'll just give you the gist of it. This author is complaining that there are too many books published. There are too many books being brought to the British Museum, and he is lamenting. This is too much. How can we possibly read this stuff? How can we separate the important books from the junk? This is, basically he is saying that this is information overload. He doesn't use that word, but it's the same concept that we are experiencing right now. But he is already lamenting this in 1869. And he says something interesting. Remember, this was the 19th century. This was the era of technology and science, and a lot of new inventions were happening. And he says something very interesting at the end of this article. Machinery has done wonders. And when we think of what literature is becoming, it is certainly to be wished that we could read it by machinery, and by machinery, digest it. So basically he's saying, this is too much information. Can't we use machines to read books? And that's a very, very interesting concept in 1869. Perhaps he was being just satirical, but the funny thing is, 146 years later, so this was in 2015, a group of scholars studying 19th century newspapers, including that one, that Pall Mall Gazette newspaper that I just showed to you, did this project where they compared many, many issues of hundreds of 19th century newspapers to study how newspapers were borrowing material from each other. Or you can also say steal, because a lot of these newspapers in those days, they didn't really care about copyright. So they would take someone else's news and reprint it on their paper. But this scholar is using digital technology to find that out. So you can see on the screen, there are actually two different issues of different newspapers. But you can see some red and green letters in there. And this is where they have identified that the same story is being reprinted twice in different newspapers. They even came up with a really fancy visual graph showing how these little newspapers, the dots in the graphs are the newspaper titles, how they borrowed these articles from each other. How did they do that? Did they actually read every single newspaper page of hundreds of newspapers? No. They used a computer program. And this technology, this methodology, is what is called digital humanities. It's just one example of this dynamic field called digital humanities. And so this is just an interesting one example that I shared to you of digital humanities. But why is this becoming such a hot topic? Why are so many institutions becoming so excited about digital humanities? For instance, if you Google digital humanities, you would find out that a lot of the major universities, institutions in the world would have digital humanities centers. They would have whole websites, really, really well-built websites dedicated to the topic. I show you some examples from Oxford, from Berkeley, University of California, and Princeton, but there are many, many others here. And institutions are really pouring money into the digital humanities, even though the budgets for the humanities in general are declining. One of the attractions to these universities is that digital humanities tends to be multidisciplinary. You can't just have one scholar to do a project like the one I showed to you. You need a whole team of scholars. And in that team, you need to have not just literature specialists or historians, you also need IT programmers and data analysts and all kinds of people all working in a team across disciplines to come at some kind of conclusion using digital technology. This is a kind of a debatable point, but a lot of these university administrators tend to think that digital humanities is a new way of making humanities students more employable, because a student who has studied digital humanities rather than just reading books in the traditional way would have been exposed to many different methodologies using digital technologies like big data analysis, and that would really help that student get a new job when they enter the actual workplace. So, in the beginning I mentioned that Gale has been publishing a lot of historical material in digital format. How does that interact with our products? I will share with you 3 different ways, and the third way is actually a very new one, that Gale is interacting and supporting scholars studying the digital humanities. The first one is our Gale Primary Sources platform. We have collected 36 different products of 272 selectable modules that comprise more than 138 million pages of historical books, newspapers, maps, photographs, and many other things on our Gale Primary Sources platform. And one of the great attractions of this platform is the ability to search not just the bibliographical data, not just the titles, the authors, but you can search a word like Siam across all of these 138 millions of pages of material and find that word Siam right in the middle of a book that you never dreamed of. So this is that discoverability, that digital technology is really transforming historical studies. A lot of historians are having to rewrite their theses, rewrite their history books because they are finding new kinds of information that they didn't think was there. Another tool that is really popular among scholars is the term frequency tool. This is a tool that allows a scholar to visualize how frequently a certain word is appearing across all of this material. I purposely hid the word here, and this is important. This is going to feature something later, so pay attention here. Can anyone guess what the word is that is appearing in this graph? One hint, if you look closely, there is a spike every 4 years. What happens every 4 years? A sports event. Anyone? It happened last year. Olympics? That's right, Olympics. So I searched Olympics using the term frequency tool, and I came up with this zigzag pattern, and quite obviously, every 4 years, the word Olympics, spikes up because there is an Olympic event. You could even click on one of these dots and look at the actual newspaper articles or book articles which contain the word Olympics in the interface. Another way you can take this material apart is what we call a term cluster tool, and this shows you a kind of a heat map of what words and what terms are appearing together with my search term. So my search term is again Olympics, but if you look at this graph, you would see interesting words like Winter Olympics, Olympic Games, but also see something like Soviet occupation, White House, boycott, and all kinds of political words. So Olympics is not just about enjoying sports and bonding with each other. It's also very political, and you can make a lot of unexpected discoveries looking at this term cluster analysis. A second way that we are helping digital humanities scholars is just providing the data itself. This is something we started a few years ago, raw data delivery. And a lot of scholars who have purchased these archives from us are requesting the actual data behind the archives. And we deliver that in a hard drive just like this. All you need to do is to sign a certain license agreement, and we deliver the data to them. And already scholars are coming up with interesting results. So I'll share with you some examples. This scholar in Australian National University took the data from our 18th century collections, and he is looking at quotations, hidden quotations from famous authors. So he wrote a whole algorithm identifying famous quotations from famous authors all across 18th century books, and he came up with a ranking. That's one way you can use this data. Another scholar was studying the women's suffrage movement, the movement for women to win the vote in the elections. And she studied the Times newspaper data, and she came up with a list of adjectives that the Times was using to discover the suffragettes, and she discovered that many of those adjectives tend to be rather negative. The Times was reporting the suffragette movement as something violent, something bad, something that is kind of uncontrollable. So clearly the newspaper had a bias against the suffrage movement. She was able to prove that. This scholar is looking for new lines of poetry hidden in 17th and 18th century newspapers. So he and his team delivered and developed an algorithm that identifies verse or poetry within newspaper text automatically using a machine learning tool. And he is already finding new lines of poetry using that algorithm and programming. Now, all of this are examples of digital humanities applications, but it may sound kind of a little bit advanced, a little bit difficult because you hear about scholars writing programs, using algorithms, teams of scholars, and things like that. So, at Gale, we are working on a third avenue, which we are tentatively calling the Gale Digital Humanities Sandbox. We haven't delivered this yet, but we are hoping to deliver this year. And what this will be is a cloud-based platform or environment where scholars can conduct really sophisticated digital humanities types analysis, but not having to write their own programs. They can use it within the platform. So this is something more advanced than our usual product platform, but less difficult than actually taking the raw data in a hard drive and manipulating it yourself, writing algorithms and programs on your own. So hopefully we can deliver this sandbox environment within this year and show something interesting to your humanities scholars so they can also conduct sophisticated digital humanities analyses. So, to conclude, digital technology is really transforming the way historians and humanities scholars look at material from the past. They are making unexpected discoveries, making new connections using these digital analytical tools. It's hard to define, but digital humanities is really attracting the attentions of institutions and researchers at a global scale. And Gale, through its primary sources program, is trying to help researchers and institutions that want to get involved in the digital humanities by providing a really good platform for accessing the data of our historical material, our Gale Primary Sources platform. We also provide raw XML text data with full metadata to any institution who has purchased the data at only a nominal cost. And the third way, which we are working on, the sandbox, which will be a cloud-based application environment, which will allow researchers to do something a little bit more sophisticated than our usual platform can allow them to do. Okay? Does that sound interesting to you? You're all waiting for the lucky draw. So I'll end here, and thank you very much. Kopun Krap.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
ตอนนี้ถึงเวลาที่ทุกท่านรอคอยแล้วนะครับ
ในก่อนอื่นนะคะต้องขอเรียนเชิญนะคะ
อาจารย์วันธนากิติศรีวราพันธ์นะครับศรีวรพันธ์นะครับผู้อำนวยการสำนักหอสมุดมหาวิทยาลัยบูรพาสำนักวิทยาบริการได้มอบของที่ระลึกเพื่อเป็นการขอบคุณท่านวิทยากรนะครับก่อนที่เราจะจับของรางวัลนะฮะมอบของที่ระลึกกันก่อนนะครับขอเรียนเชิญครับขอบพระคุณอาจารย์วันธนานะครับเอาละครับถึงเวลาที่ทุกท่านรอคอยจริงๆแล้วนะครับจำหมายเลขของตัวเองได้ไหมครับ
จากบูธของเกลนะคะที่เราได้ไปร่วมลงชื่อเยี่ยมชมบูธเกลนะคะเพื่อลุ้นรับ iPhone นะคะตอนนี้ที่ฉันมือสั่นมากเหมือนได้เองแล้วเรียบร้อยนะคะ
ทุกท่านมีสิทธิ์ได้นะครับถ้าจำหมายเลขของตัวเองได้นะครับและยังอยู่ในที่นี้นะครับ
ค่ะต้องขอเรียนเชิญรักษาการแทนนะคะผู้อำนวยการสำนักหอสมุดมหาวิทยาลัยเชียงใหม่เป็นผู้มอบโชคนะคะ iPhone นะคะขออธิบายนิดนึงค่ะ iPhone 7 สีดำค่ะ
ความจุเท่าไหร่ครับ
อ๋อครับความจุประมาณ32ครับเฉลยแล้วล่ะฮะตอนแรกว่าจะอุบไว้อุบอยู่ไหมครับเนี่ยตอนนี้
ไม่ได้แล้วค่ะเพราะว่าเราแอบดูเรียบร้อยแล้วนะคะ
โอเคครับขอบคุณนะครับก็สำหรับเห็นผมขึ้นมาอย่างนี้แล้วก็คือวันนี้ผมเอาของมาด้วยตามที่ทุกท่านพอจะทราบแล้วนะฮะเรามาลองดูกันโอเค ตามกติกาที่ตกลงกันไว้สำหรับท่านที่แวะไปที่บูธเกลมานะครับเรามีของรางวัลชิ้นนี้สำหรับตอนนี้ก็คือ iPhone 7 นะครับสำหรับท่านที่กดคลิกไลค์และก็แชร์แฟนเพจของเรานะครับซึ่งผมได้อธิบายไปแล้วหลังจากนั้นเนี่ยก็มีการให้เขียนรายชื่อลงทะเบียนรายชื่อเอาไว้ตามนี้เพื่อเป็นหลักฐานนะครับจากนั้นมีสลิปอยู่แล้วด้วยทีนี้ผมจะถึงเวลาที่ผมจะให้ท่านผู้บริการได้จับดูว่าท่านไหนจะเป็นผู้โชคดีพร้อมไหมครับพร้อมนะฮะตอนนี้ท่านไหนที่ยังไม่คลิกรีบคลิกนะครับเมื่อกี้คุณมาร์คโทรมามาร์คซักเคอร์เบิร์กโทรมาบอกว่า Facebook จะล่มแล้วนะฮะวันนี้คลิกไลค์กันถล่มทลายเลยนะฮะโอเคครับเชิญครับ
ขอคุณนานๆค่ะ
ตื่นเต้นแทนสัก5 นาทีดีไหมครับ โอเคจะได้แล้วฮะได้แล้วนะครับโอเคเรามาลองดูกันนะครับจำเบอร์กันได้ไหมฮะว่าท่านไหนจะได้เบอร์อะไรกันจำได้ด้วยสุดยอดครับคนที่ได้รางวัลเอาเพศกันก่อนเป็นเพศกันก่อนจากชื่อนะชื่อเป็นเพศหญิงครับก่อนที่จะอ่านลืมบอกอีกนิดนึงรอบนี้เป็นรอบ iPhone 7 ดินเนอร์อย่าพลาดยังมี iPad mini 4 ไม่ต้องลงทะเบียนแล้วทุกชื่อที่อยู่ในนี้จะได้อีกครั้งแต่คนนี้จะไม่ได้แล้วนะได้อันนี้ไปก่อนอยากรู้ยังนะครับโอเคท่านที่ได้นะครับชื่อว่าคุณกัลยาณีสุประดิษฐ์ครับเบอร์74อยู่ไหมฮะอยู่ไหมครับนับถ้าไม่อยู่ไม่ได้ใช่ครับ
นับ1 ถึง 3นะครับ
นับ1ค่ะ
อ๋ออยู่นะครับ
อ๋อ
ไม่อยู่เหรอคะ
ได้ครับคอนเฟิร์มนะฮะอยู่อ๋ออยู่ใช่ไหมฮะเชิญเลยครับมาตอบคำถามก่อนนะครับไม่ต้องโชว์ครับไม่ต้องโชว์ครับ
อยู่ไหมคะ
อ๋อโทรศัพท์ใช่ไหมฮะอ๋ออยู่ไหมฮะ
เอาโทรศัพท์เครื่องเดิมมาแลกอยู่ค่ะ
เอาเครื่องเก่ามาแลกเครื่องใหม่
ค
ครับ
อยู่ในเงื่อนไขแรกแต่ก็โอเคนะครับอ๋อเปล่าครับผมแซวเล่นครับไม่ต้องแลกครับเชิญเลยครับทางทีมงานรบกวนขอสไลด์หน่อยนะครับโอเคเชิญนะครับเชิญทางด้านนี้เลยครับไมโครโฟนนะครับ
So before we can present her the coveted iPhone 7 you must demonstrate that you have paying attention to my presentation So we have a little quiz. Okay, this is for the iPhone 7.
Okay, Masaki-san, let me help. คุณมาสกิบอกว่าเพื่อเป็นการให้ชัวร์นะครับว่าเราได้ผู้โชคดีที่ตั้งใจฟังเรามาลองดูกันนะครับผมตื่นเต้นแทนเลยอะโอเค Okay, go on.
Okay, so please pay attention to the screen over there.
เชิญครับ
What word does this graph represent? Number 1, this is multi-choice. Number 1, Olympics. Number 2, World Cup. Number 3, IFMA Muay Thai World Championship. Which one?
เลือก choice ครับเชิญครับกำลังใจล้นหลามเลยฮะผมยังไม่ได้บอกใช่ไหมถ้าเขาตอบผิดจะได้จับกันใหม่แต่เมื่อกี้ผมได้ยินคำตอบมาแล้วเชิญครับใช่ไหมเลยครับ
Number 1
Olympic
And the answer is indeed number 1 Olympics. So congratulations. You win an iPhone 7. Okay? So let me present the iPhone 7 to our customer.
เดี๋ยวขอถ่ายรูปด้วยกันนะฮะขอถ่ายรูปด้วยกันหน่อยนะครับ
ขอแสดง
ต้องข
ขอบ
อ
คุณ
แสด
มาก
ง
นะ
ความ
ครับ
ยินดีด้วยนะคะ
ครับขอบคุณนะครับ ขอบคุณทุกท่านด้วยนะครับ เดี๋ยวตอนดินเนอร์เรามาร่วมเล่นกันอีกครั้งหนึ่งนะฮะโอเคอดใจรอนะครับขอบคุณมากครับ
There is still a second chance. So please come to our booth and register if you wish to win an iPad mini. Thank you very much for your attention.